Alright, so welcome everybody to Zuppi versus Classicpro, one of the more interesting Hidden Cup 4 qualifiers. Zuppi, I don't think I need to introduce him to anybody, one of the stronger Suomi players out there, and a very nice guy overall. Classicpro, an up-and-coming Ukrainian player who practices a lot with Winchester. In fact, he's the same clan as Winchester, so I feel like he has the chance to surprise Zuppi. He has had a breakout performance in Red Bull Volvo free qualifiers. He upset Viles over there. So Classicpro is definitely a dangerous player. We will see what he can do against Zuppi. I'm going to predict 3-1 in the favor of Zuppi, however. So we'll see. Here are the map drafts. Classicpro picks Slopes and Hideout. Zuppi picks Islands and Bay. So 2 hybrid maps from Zuppi and 2 land maps from Classicpro. Civilizations: Italians and Aztecs are the global bands. Japanese, Malay, Indians, Portuguese, Cumans, Tatars, and Britons are the civs for Classicpro. And surprisingly, we see a Cuman snipe over here from Zuppi. Other side, we will have a Chinese, Mongols, Malians, Koreans, Berbers, and Khmer available for Zuppi after Classicpro has sniped Vikings. And with that, I think we are ready to jump into game number 1 over here. I'm going to restart my Capture Age though, because I've been doing quite a lot of casting right now, and Capture Age likes to be restarted from time to time again. And we should be good to go. So, welcome everybody to game number 1 in this best of 5 in between Zuppi and Classicpro. Once again, I would be tempted to say that we should just go through Dark Age a little bit faster than normal. When Gunji and backed Luca, I will be probably casting that from recorded games sometime in the evening and upload that to YouTube. That's what I do with this series that I'm not able to cast live. That's somewhat unfortunate, but I was actually thinking about Bekti versus Gunji to cast today, but I decided that I will prioritize the other one, which was Lix versus Stark. But yeah, I will try to cast everything that is possible. So Genji Bhakti is one of the highest on my list when it comes to casting from Rex. Anyways, Zuppi is gonna be down south over here playing as Chinese in blue, and Classicpro will be playing yellow. So he's going to channel his inner Viper with that color. Classicpro usually plays yellow, so there are a couple of players that like to play with a certain color. Good example of this is Viper with yellow, but also Winchester with purple, Draken with purple. Then, for example, Project Belgium likes to play orange. Speaking of him, what else do we have? There are a couple of players. Yeah, Max Steel as well, that's actually pretty common too. Classicpro likes his yellow. Leary Green, that's also possible. Honestly, I haven't seen Leary playing that much green, but that may be because most of the time where we see Leary playing in tournaments was Red Bull so far. And here he can't actually use that. I don't think I know any expert players that actually likes to play gray though, as we have Classicpro hitting the woodline of Zuppi. So this is actually a very, very interesting matchup in terms of players. The thing is that Classicpro is probably the fast, young, and talented player, whereas Zuppi is the little bit slower, wise, old. I'm not going to say old man because I don't want to be disrespectful to Zuppi, who is probably one of my favorite players. Like, he's definitely the top 5, or in my top 5 in AoE 2 personalities. He's a super, super nice guy. So, really, just the fact that, you know, he's definitely the older, chill type of person. I don't know what his heart rate is, but the thing is that I've never seen Zuppi angry, I've never seen Zuppi tilted, so he probably has something like 20 heart rate or so. Yeah, Bagum says 30. So, on the other side, Classicpro is more of the young and talented, a little bit more aggressive. I think he's also faster in terms of APM. It's going to be interesting to take a look at if that is really the case. But this Russian lead did quite a lot in Zuppi's eco, and that's something that we cannot deny. There was no villagers killed, but quite a lot of idle time. If you look at the overall idle time, it's 415 against 122. And Classicpro is apparently going for a Drush FC over here, and the thing is that normally I'm not a fan of Drush FCs because Man-at-Arms play can actually punish that really well, and here one villager goes down, and remember that Zuppi is going scouts. Oh boy, that's actually pretty tough, and I predicted 3-1, and many said that Classicpro could be a tough nut to crack for Zuppi. I'm not sure about the seeds. I think Zuppi should be somewhere around seed 25-ish, and Classicpro should be something like 45. But the thing is that this is looking extremely good for Classicpro. He's gonna have a perfect Drush FC here. So longer lasting sheep also helps quite a bit when it comes to Drush FC, and he's going to be able to clean this one up with the scouts. But look at this. Classicpro was able to kill one villager idle lot, so it's 7:45 villager idle time already for our Finnish player, and it looks like Max might be thinking about scouts and towers here. He's probably going to try and tower the berries if he sees them. We'll see if he does, but he has very little information about the opponent's base, and that is something that we also have to consider in this situation. Classicpro on the way to Feudal Age, and he's gonna have a pretty clean Drush FC over here. I don't think that this tower can go up before Classicpro would be able to hook up to Castle Age here. So the thing is that here comes the tower, but Classicpro is now in Feudal. There is a range, so this could be crossbows for fast tumbling, or this could be potentially even straight Cav Archers. I would like crossbows a little bit more, so Drush FC crossbows into Cav Archers could be a thing. And it looks like Classicpro is going to have to delay his Castle Age a little bit, because the thing is that he's gonna have to go for a defensive tower here. He's a little bit low on wood to my taste, but that is because just now he has dropped his blacksmith. And Max... What Max? This is Zuppi. Zuppi's tower here might not even go up. Oh, disaster! Full disaster from Zuppi, and this game couldn't have started worse for him, to be honest. He's going to be delayed into Castle Age quite heavily. This tower is going to be cancelled most likely, although, yeah, there is the villager still around. He's trying to pull a villager so that they repair, and maybe Classicpro doesn't notice this, but no, that's not going up. 84% with 2 villagers is just not going up, and that also means that Zuppi has lost all the stone invested into that tower. Classicpro is living a happy life over here right now. So on the way to Castle Age is Classicpro, and now he's making archers just like he should. And the thing is that Zuppi is playing wide open, so even just a couple of crossbows could cause a lot of disaster. Now Zuppi is going to react with elite skirms. Or, well, not elite skirms right now, but only standard skirms. That may be enough to hold for a while, but it's going to take some time until he gets a good number of them. And the two players are pretty close to each other as well, something that we didn't talk about just yet. As I said, as I'm trying to keep the schedule to, you know, especially because Nili vs. Kaposh is a series that I definitely want to cast. I did speed through Dark Age. Usually I don't do that, especially when I'm casting for YouTube as well. But we didn't have the time to talk about the map layout for these two players. Classicpro has a very nice base overall. So the gold mine at the back, wood lines are pretty decent as well. Berries aren't awful either. And the two players are very close to each other. And in comparison, Zuppi's base is relatively open. So the thing is that he needs to do a lot of walling in order to be able to protect his base. You can see how far away he has to go. But that is Castle Age, and Classicpro, he knows about the location of Zuppi's base, but he's going to be a little bit unlucky if he goes this direction, because there is walls already over there, and if he moves in over here with the crossbows, this is GG. I have to say that. If he moves in here with the crossbows, this may be GG, because that gold mine is wide open for crossbows with tumbling to kill that. Zuppi just getting fletching for those skirms. So without armor, without extra attack, the crossbows with tumbling should be able to eat that. Zuppi is buying himself some nice time, but that's one skirm going down. Zuppi could potentially try to pick that spearman off. At least he's delaying this push, which is something, and it looks like Classicpro will continue with crossbows for the time being. Eventually he will switch into Cav Archers, he kinda has to. And for now, at least Classicpro is delayed here, so Zuppi is doing a nice job delaying him. Scouts will have an effect over here on this fight for a moment, but then they will just get slain. But the thing is that Zuppi is still not going up to Castle Age here, and if Classic Pro would have a stable and just one knight on the field, this would also be an absolute disaster. Zuppi is gonna have to potentially abandon the gold mine once again. Classic Pro should be trying to take the hill here with the Tatar bonus. And that's not an ideal fight right now against Skirms, but as I said, Tatar heal bonus, and your opponent doesn't have the Pierce Armor upgrade on the Skirm, and this is still open. I have no idea why Zuppi is not walling this one, but let's just say that this start from Zuppi was sort of a disaster, we can say that. He's on the way to Castle Age, but 2.5 minutes is an awfully long time when you have 8 crossbows inside your eco. It's also double range for Classic Pro, only single range for Zuppi. So he's going to be able to just purely outnumber his opponent over here. A lot of farming eco will be denied, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a Forward Voyager soon from Classic Pro, or potentially a stable for knights being added. That horse clear is a little bit too late for my taste, but still, at this point, Classic Pro's aggro strategy comes in here, and that's something that we have seen in Red Bull as well, that Classic Pro is definitely one of the more aggressive players out here. Zuppi has to do a lot of walling. As I said, his map is doing no good to Zuppi. However, it's also about the fact that he went for scouts, and he got completely caught off guard by a Drush FC, and now the crossbows run past the TC. I think that is almost a GG scenario here, because yeah, this tower goes up, but when your eco looks like this, that is never great. And Zuppi is gonna have to pull the boys, pull the girls. Zuppi taps out. Oh man. Someone on chat said that Classic Pro could cause problems for Zuppi, and I was somewhat skeptical about that, because I was like, Zuppi is still a player that I consider to be better overall, especially because Classic Pro only had one standout performance. But it seems like Zuppi's start here was a disaster. Classic Pro played this very well. He played this the way he should have played this. However, it was also Zuppi having a really rough time at the beginning of this game. So that Drush was very good from Classic Pro, and overall, at the end of the day, we had a pretty clean win over here for Classic Pro in game number 1, which means that we'll be playing on the home map of Zuppi, which is Bay, apparently. So let me get that game. And alright, is that game still going on? Okay, it's still going on, so we're actually catching up with this one. This game is still live, but they're probably a little bit deeper into that. As I said, we started about 20 minutes later than normal, but we're going into game number 2 over here, in between Classic Pro and Zuppi. Indeed, I need to upgrade the score as well in the lobby. It's 1-0 right now for Classic Pro, and we're going to see a Malay versus Berber matchup over here. So Malay is definitely not one of the civs that you commonly see on this map. However, there is an idea behind that one. And remember that Classic Pro is practicing a lot with Winchester. In fact, they are teammates, as you see in Team Salts. And that Salts team is getting pretty strong overall, if you think about that. They have Winchester, who is definitely a top 16 player now, and I think he's getting closer to a top 10 stance now that he's playing consistently. Classic Pro has had some very nice moments. Dark is a very underrated and super young player. That Salts team could be extremely dangerous in the future in potential team game tournaments, for example. Anyways, as I said, Classic Pro is going to be playing with Malay, which is a little bit unconventional, but Winchester was already known for playing unconventional. As I said, they're practice partners, they probably teach. I would think that Winchester is the one coaching Classic Pro, but they probably figured out strategies together as well, just like good teammates do, which means that it is likely that Winchester may have influenced this choice as well, and even if he didn't, this civilization choice is very Winchester-like. So you see that the thought process of the two players is actually very similar. When it comes to selecting civs, it's a slower civ. However, on this map, you don't necessarily need speed, because you just need one monster push in the middle Oftentimes, Classicpro will lame 2 sheep. Once again, we'll be doing a little bit of a speed through Dark Age, so we will be able to catch up with the actual live games over here. Dogs coming in here for both sides, and at the end of the day, Classicpro is laming away 2 sheep, was in the Voyager, so that dog is gonna have no trouble going up. And what Malay could give you is that if you win water, you are gonna have a crazy fish boom. However, if you are Zuppi right now, you have to know that your opponent is going to just try to secure water. Berbers overall is an interesting selection, and I'm tempted to say that I also like the Malay options in late game as well. The other thing that is beautiful for Malay is that your time to go up to the next stage is much smaller. So you see that, for example, that loom is weird. That's a capture age bug, ladies and gentlemen. AP, are you listening? Loom at 0 still, and Feudal Age just coming in, okay, it disappeared. But anyways, as you see, we have 24 Voyagers, but the speed that Malay go up to the next stage helps them beat their opponents into the next stage. That's going to be the case for Castle Age as well, so the power spikes of Malay are extremely good. I think on maps where you don't need a lot of mobility, Malay is definitely an S tier civ. And this is one of those maps, to be honest. Obviously, later on, you will need mobility, because you need to get out the gold over here on this ridge. But unless you play into, like, very, very late post-Imperial scenario, you are likely going to have a very good chance of just pushing with your slow army across over here. And as I said, look at this. Fire Galley already killing Zuppi's fishing eco by the time the first Fire Galley comes in here. Now, obviously, Berber ships move faster, which helps a little bit when it comes to microing for Zuppi, but his fishing eco is already getting pressure, loses a fishing ship very, very easily over here, and Classicpro is already getting the third ship out over here, so Zuppi is gonna need some monster demo hits here to start turning the tide of the water engagement. Also worth noting that the Classicpro, I think, was able to get a hit on that scout before the scout was Feudal Age. Zuppi caused the Voyager though to help Classicpro reacts, but now his scout HP is a little bit lower, but takes a temporary advantage when it comes to a water fight. Remember, the fact that you can run away from an engagement with Berbers is actually pretty nice, and also you can catch up with the opponent's ships, so the faster moving ships works out nicely over here. The problem is that behind this, you're just getting outnumbered when it comes to just sheer ship numbers, because your opponent was faster to Feudal Age over here, and you see that another ship is going to just sink to the bottom of the ocean. Now we have a scouts war over here. Classicpro takes down the scout as well. He loses his own scout, but in the meanwhile, it's 3-1 in terms of ship numbers now, and Classicpro could just use one Fire Galley over here to clean up the fishing eco of his opponent. Once again, this feels extremely one-sided at the beginning, and honestly, if... like, most people would have probably said that if this is going to be one-sided, it's going to be one-sided in the favor of Zuppi and not Classicpro, because, as I said, we have seen very, very little from Classicpro in major tournaments. So, he has defeated Viles, I think it was 3-2 though, in Red Bull Volo qualifiers. And, oh, that was an inefficient demo, a very inefficient demo, in fact. But so far he has been pretty dominant in this game right now. If you take a look at the KD, it's 7-1. Now Zuppi pops out the Fire Galleys, and Classicpro, not paying attention, loses another one, but he already killed the fishing eco of his opponent. Plus, as I said, with Malay, since you go up to the next stage faster, it also allows you to, you know, pretty much get basically 2-ish more Voyagers just from your TC, because you spend less time going up to the next stage, so you have more time getting Voyagers out. So at the end of the day, if you think about that, Classicpro versus Zuppi right now stands with Classicpro having an 8 Voyagers lead over his opponent, and now it seems like Classicpro is already adding fishing ships. This may be a little bit premature, because it's not like he has completely conquered water, but Zuppi is in a rough spot over here, and you could say, hey, you could counterattack on land. That was a beautiful demo as well from Classicpro, trading it off to the opponent's demo. So, at this point, it seems like Zuppi tried a demo snipe on the fish, but that didn't work out either, and I'm not going to lie, Zuppi is getting stomped over here. Like, this is not even close, and as I said, this is a very, very tricky matchup, because you have a young and fast and talented player versus the wise and slower player of the opponent. Zuppi's game knowledge is probably much better than Classicpro's game knowledge. However, it seems like the speed of Classic Pro is going to be a little bit too much for Zuppi to handle, and also the Malay Sif selection is coming in clutch here for Classic Pro, so the strategy also works out pretty nicely over here. And look at this, without fishing eco, Zuppi is forced to make a lot of farms, runs out of berries, and this much fishing eco for the Malay player is going to show in probably having a better castlage time than your opponent, even though right now Zuppi is having a slightly better food count. Guys, look at this. What is this? What is the plan here for Classic Pro? What is the plan? I'm curious now. That's a transport ship on a map where Zuppi is fully evolved. He's getting outposts over here, and Zuppi is going up to castle now with Market Blacksmith, or at least he's trying to do that. But that's an actual transport ship that will transport archers through. Like, that's actually the legit plan for Classic Pro. I have no idea why he's not just walking around. Maybe he thinks there is an opening here. But he should know. As good as the game plan was to just pick Malay here for a faster up, it's a little bit sloppy because you should know that your opponent is going to be able to ward this one off. What do you... Look at this. Maybe he thinks that there is an opening here, but he sees the palisades and whatnot, so I would be massively surprised. And, oh, that was inefficient for Zuppi. Oh, that's so bad as well. Just demoing a dock there, that was very, very inefficient. Back when I was a kid, by the way, this is sort of a story time. When I played Islands, I always played Islands against the AI because they couldn't attack me early on and I could just boom. Back when I was a kid and I played against the AI on Islands, I always used just demo ships to destroy all docks. I was like, the best way to destroy docks is just send wave after wave of hundreds of demos into them. And I was killing them faster than my opponent could replace them. That's just a little story over here. Anyways, Zuppi is going to be up against a couple of archers, and the funny thing is that he clicked up earlier. Will he get to Castle Age earlier? He won't. Look at this. He's going to have an 8 seconds advantage going into Castle Age, and do you know what is going to happen now? Well, number one, he could actually try Palisade chopping through here, but that's not going to happen anymore because there is a Palisade behind that. But more importantly, this is going to be a Siege Workshop simply. You just make a Siege Workshop and start pushing this one. I would like to point out how good the map awareness is for Classic Pro. He's using one archer to scout because he did lose his starting scout over here. But all the outposts is what matters a lot for him. He knows exactly if Zuppi is moving out of his base, and behind this one he's going to have a very, very good fish boom, especially when he starts adding the fish traps that's going to materialize. So Zuppi is getting into Castle Age here, but Zuppi is going to have +1 defense with no bloodlines, and he's going to start making knights on a single stable, whereas Classic Pro already has a couple of archers, soon going to have a crossbowman as well. And, oh, this is smart as well. This is very smart from Classic Pro. He's burning down this house so that the archers can actually pass behind that. That's very, very smart. And now he's getting a galley in to prevent the second layering. A TC comes in here, and it looks like Classic Pro is not going to use this Voyager for a Siege Workshop. Crossbows in here now. As I said, no bloodlines or +2 defense on this knight. However, this knight is going to delay the push of these crossbows so much that this TC goes up, and that's an extremely important thing for Zuppi right now. +2 defense just in for our Suomi player, but we can't underestimate the importance of a 14 villagers lead. We are 22 minutes into this game and it's a 14 villagers lead for Classic Pro. And as I said, Malay fishing is no joke with the infinite fish traps. So from that point on, he may not even need to go for a lot of farming eco. He's going to be on 3 TCs. I don't like that he's open here, because knights could just run into his eco and completely destroy everything that he has built up until to this point. There's going to be defensive siege workshop, and it looks like knights will try to intercept the crossbows. The crossbows might jump into the transport. That's the thing. The crossbows could jump into the transport, and that could allow them to survive. You can also use the fire galleys here to burn down the knights, and they actually do quite a lot of damage to the knights here. You could have used the transport to save the crossbows, though. Can you dog block with dog plus fish trap? That's a good question. You can. However, the fish traps die very, very easily, so that's not really viable. You can place a dog block here and then drop a fish trap to block the 1 tile extra gap. But I think that was the case in Hidden Cup 3, and it didn't really work out. Did I mention that you are not supposed to be open like this if you're Classic Pro? He knows exactly there is a massive hole over there. I don't know why he's not walling himself up. Luckily for him, Zuppi doesn't believe there is a hole there, so that's not actually going to be the thing. Over here, Monk jumps into the TC for now. It's a couple of knights for Zuppi, but the problem is that he's losing the boom race. He is on 2 TCs, just making the third one, no fishing eco, whereas his opponent is on 3 TCs, and he also has quite a lot of fishing eco for himself, and Malay are extremely good with their power spikes. And the thing is that since Zuppi isn't really making a lot of very food heavy units, that basically means that Zuppi is going to be able to turn all the food income that he's gonna have from the farms and fish first into villager production, but later on, once he has like 30-ish villagers on food, he's going to be able to just turn this into a very fast Imperial Age and go for Arbalest Bombard Cannon. And since Malay are getting up to Imperial Age so fast, that is going to be extremely hard for Zuppi to defend against. Zuppi is playing 3 TCs right now, but he's a little bit too passive for my taste, to be honest. So right now trying to bash his way through the walls, not going to really happen. Gets Boso, an upgrade that Classicpro once again has, and wherever I look at on this map, I feel like Classicpro has the upper hand. He already has a Monk here, so he could start picking up relics. I don't see that for Zuppi. Zuppi is 3 TC, so is Classicpro, but Classicpro has a 16 villagers lead. There is also going to be the Malay Infinite Fish Traps over here for Classicpro. Classicpro is fully evolved, he's got a little bit more developed food eco. Really, everything seems to be in the favor of Classicpro right now. And Zuppi is gonna have to try pushing this one with Mangonel and Knights. But it's gonna be tough because Classicpro could potentially make a Siege Workshop back at home. He already has 2 villagers on stone, so we'll see if we are going to see an early castle as well from him. Bloodlines just now coming in here for Zuppi. And the thing is that Classicpro knows how many knights he's up against. So it's 8 knights, he sees that on the outposts, he sees that quite a lot of them are damaged. Are you going to cast Valas versus Rubenstock afterwards? Nope, next one is Nili versus Kaposh. I will be casting Valas versus Rubenstock as recorded games for YouTube. So in case you are looking for a series that I haven't casted live, you can check on my YouTube. Obviously, it's going to take quite a lot of time for me to cast all of the series, but so far the majority of the series are already uploaded to my YouTube, and I will keep doing that as well. So it might actually appear on Monday/Tuesday. There is actually redemption on those monks, by the way. Malay monks are no joke, and there's a Mangonel getting converted, and it's gonna get killed immediately by the opponent's Mangonel, but still, 1 knight and 1 Mangonel gets converted, 2 knights getting converted, and now Classicpro sends in the knight to deal with the Mangonel. Mangonel is still alive, another knight comes in here, and oh, that's a disaster fight for Zuppi once again. He's got quite a lot of knights on the field, but there is another monk. It's actually converting a weak knight, which is a little bit unfortunate for Classicpro over here, but he's got the TC fire helping, and this is all that Zuppi has right now to push with. This Mangonel could actually walk on the shallows, and the fire galleys could take it down, which would once again be an added disaster to the already problematic position that Zuppi is in. Oh boy, this is getting closer and closer to being a 2-0, to be honest. Because as I said, now this fishing eco here for Classicpro is perfect. This is infinite food income at a rather fast pace as well. You could even make a case for gill nets. In fact, if you're Classicpro, you should be adding like 5 more fishing ships here. Then you would have a much better eco. So I feel like Classicpro is actually committing way too much to farms, and he could add a couple more fishing ships. Now there is a reason why he could still commit to farms, and that is because this fishing eco is still more exposed than the farming eco here at the back, so you don't really want to commit to full fishing because you may actually lose that. But I feel like in this situation I could really see Classic adding 2 or 3 more fishing ships for a little bit of extra food income. That being said, Zuppi seems like he's gonna be a little bit faster into Imperial, and we might see some Janitors from Zuppi over here. Berbers have access to that. It looks like we're gonna have pikemen on the field as well for Classicpro. And the Mangonel will be deleted, but it is Sensity on those monks. This is, boys, why you get your Sensity on your monks, because that way they can survive a direct Mango hit. And without Sensity they can't. Zuppi on the way to Imperial, but once again, he clicks up earlier, but he's up against Malay, and the Malay will be up to Imperial a little faster at the end of the day. As I said, I think if Classicpro just adds a couple more fishing ships, he would even click up at the same time. And at the end of the day, after balancing the eco and getting that university up, he's going to be moving in to Imperial. 153 remaining, 233. So Malay click up once again, 30 villagers lead almost. And you're also gonna have a much better castlage time or Imperial time. Zuppi may actually be able to achieve something with this counterattack, but Classicpro is getting closer to a defensive castle, and the castle here would actually limit the amount of movement that the knights can have. And also, now we have a big push, and Classicpro is converting the siege workshop. Classicpro is converting the siege workshop, and Zuppi has to delete the only siege workshop he has had. Oh my goodness, disaster. Disaster for Zuppi completely. Now, he can bring in the knights, but if Classicpro reacts indeed, he could get 3 conversions in here, 4 conversions, could be there 5! Zuppi, what is happening to you? Zuppi is getting annihilated in this game. It's not even close. It's not even close. This is an absolute massacre. At this point, Classicpro has more knights than Zuppi does, and Classicpro doesn't even have a stable. And the Imperial Age is gonna be better, so the Arbalest will come in, and you know what this means? This means a castle over here, right in the face of Zuppi, and Zuppi could be down 2 games against Classicpro, and many people would have said that Classicpro is gonna have a shot against Zuppi, but no one expected that Classicpro is not defeating Zuppi here. He's just annihilating Zuppi. Now, this castle and counter castle could still be an interesting scenario, but chemistry is almost in for Zuppi, or for Classicpro. He's got a 40 villagers lead now, and the thing is that you can just focus down the villagers at this point. You have enough beef here to tank the tower and DC fire, and you can just use the Arbs to focus down the villagers. Look at that, knights getting converted here as well. And this is looking like a castle that's not going up for Zuppi. Zuppi is going to be down 2 games, taps out, and ladies and gentlemen, another upset in the making in Red Bull qualifiers. Classicpro upset Villes. Now he seems like he's upsetting Zuppi over here, and as I said, when I looked at this matchup, I said this is going to be a close one, but I expect Zuppi to win. This is not a close one so far. Classicpro has been annihilating Zuppi over here, and indeed, Classicpro starts to become the nemesis of the Finns over here, because he has eliminated Villes from the first qualifiers of Red Bull Vololo 3, and now he's getting close to eliminating Zuppi over here in this one. And I just want to quickly take a look at the bracket that Classicpro has on Wikipedia, because that's what I'm really interested in, on what exactly is the bracket for Classicpro. Classicpro is on the same bracket as Zuppi, and guys, do you know who Classicpro would be up against if he wins this series? He would be up against Villes. In theory, it is a likely, or not likely, but a possible scenario that he could eliminate 2 Suomi players in the first 2 rounds of the qualifiers. He's on the same side of the bracket as Villes, Zuppi, Bru, Udzi, Lan, and Repard. And honestly, from this bracket, Villes, Lan are probably the strongest players. If Classicpro is beating Zuppi and then he's able to beat Villes, I think that he's gonna have a chance to get into the main event. Oh man, imagine if he was able, like, that would be a national disaster for Suomi. That Classicpro eliminates 2 Finnish players in the first 2 rounds of the qualifiers, and they can be lucky that the max is on a different part of the bracket. But imagine if Classicpro qualifies by beating 2 Suomi players, and then in the first round of Hidden Cup he gets max. I think everybody would be like, oh, it's impossible. Oh man, that is one hell of a story if it actually happens. Alright, we are going into islands. Luckily for Zuppi, he's not gonna get lamed on islands. And he is also not going to get... oh, we have some interesting civs over here. Look at that. We will once again do a little bit of a speed through Dark Age. And we will have Classicpro playing as a yellow Portuguese over here. And the other side is gonna be Koreans for Zuppi. Oh. So let's take a look at the real maps over here for Zuppi. He's got two relatively good gold mines over here. The woodlands are nice. The island is fairly thick for him, whereas Classicpro's island is very, very thin. And that actually hurts heavily for Classic. Like, this stone mine could be exposed to war galleys, so is this one. The deer is very, very hard to push. And this gold mine is awful. Like, Classicpro has a 0 out of 10 map over here when it comes to map quality. Zuppi's map is actually very good. Classicpro's map seems to be awful, to be honest. One of the worst map generations I have seen on islands. So the thing is that it seems like Zuppi is being favored by the map generation gods over here. Classicpro is gonna have a tough time pushing in the deer, as I said, because it's on the other side of this forest over here. Stone and gold could also be denied by war galleys. These woodlands aren't great either. So, definitely not an ideal scenario. Both players are going for forward docks, which means that we're likely going to see fire galley mirrors over here. Neither of them risking a dock here on the outside. It seems like Hidden Cup for Arabia seems to spawn in a way that there is always a big pond, or not pond, but really an open sea area on the one side of the map. As we are getting close to fuel age, so we will slow the game down. So it seems like there is always an opening on one side of the map, which means that the fishing is pretty plentiful over here. So let's see what we have over here. We have a triple dock fire galleys over here with Portuguese. You can actually pull that off pretty nicely at the end of the day, if you take a look at this one. Whereas Zuppi is just making his docks, and he's gonna go open galleys. So I guess he just wants to dive in and snipe the fishing ships off from his opponent. We'll see if that is going to happen. He might even suicide these galleys just to kill the opponent's fish. Let's see if he's going to... Yes, he's going to do that. He is pretty much suiciding the galleys into the fishing ships, but that is not going to happen. And that means that now his fishing eco is going to be exposed because he's just getting the first 3 fire galleys out, whereas his opponent is almost at 5 or 6. He tried to go for a galley opening to snipe down the fishing ships. With front dock, you can't actually sustain galley opening. However, what he wanted to do is just dive in and snipe the fishing eco of the opponent. Now, he's coming back with the galley over here, and Classicpro may have underestimated that option, to be honest. That's actually a very, very nice move over there. Snipes down one fishing ship, and it looks like Classicpro isn't paying attention to that one, so he lost a fire galley, or a fishing ship over here early on. Zuppi doing a nice job keeping his fire galleys alive. The problem that Zuppi is facing is that we have seen the previous game that Classicpro just pretty much stomped Zuppi on water, and if Classicpro focuses down the other ship, he could be able to sink that. Once again, it's 1 fire galley against 6. 1 fire galley against 6, man. How did we get in here? Zuppi once again is getting annihilated, and now there is no repair voyager available, and that means that the numbers will really start showing, even though now Classicpro loses 1. The eco is actually 1 better for Zuppi, because he did snipe a fishing ship, and also these fishing ships are taking short, which is less than ideal. But yeah, the problem is that I think that Classicpro has sort of a civ advantage over here as well. So I would also prefer Portuguese over Koreans over here. I think that for Zuppi, it seems like he wants to switch into galleys, but he needs to keep them garrisoned inside the docks, otherwise they will just get killed. He needs some very, very good demo hits here, otherwise his hopes of getting into the main event of Hidden Cup will fade away in 3 games against Classicpro. And as I said, I don't know the exact seeds, but someone could look it up in the seeding sheet. That if Zuppi is the higher seed, but I think Zuppi is the higher seed. Right? Koreans don't get demo raft? What? That's the first time for me, I'm not going to lie. Procaster over here, I have never heard about that. Koreans not getting even demo raft? That's so bad. Why would you even pick Koreans here then? If you start losing in a fire galley fight, you need demos. I don't know, even Aztecs might be a better choice than Koreans here. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating here a little bit, but still. So, with that, right now we're talking about 4 galleys and 2 fire galleys versus 12 fire galleys over here. Zuppi is having a slightly better castle age time though with the resources he's having, so I think that at this point, indeed, what Zuppi has to consider is backdock and then turtle ship. Okay, Zuppi is seat 29, Classicpro is 36, so technically by the books, this is one of the more balanced matchups, and you don't see that happening, to be honest. A little bit of a lag spikes over here, let's hope that that goes away. I forgot to restart my capture age before this game, so that's probably the reason why. But yeah, these docks are history, especially without demos. So, yeah, I also think that if you were right, Pete, side dog galleys would have been much, much nicer for Koreans over here. And it looks like it's going to be turtle ships or nothing for Zuppi. I think turtle ships used to be extremely strong in the previous patch, but they actually fixed that issue. But right now we're talking about 18 army compared to just 4. Classicpro is having a slightly unbalanced eco over here, so that means that he's not going to go up to castle age anytime soon. And in the meanwhile, well, he's going to go up to castle age, but as I said, a little bit of unbalanced eco, so he's going to be delayed quite heavily. So there's going to be about 1.5 minutes difference in the favor of Zuppi. So the real question is, can the turtle ship save the day? It's only 1 dock from Zuppi though. Only 1 dock, and look at this. Classicpro is making outposts to make sure that he is aware of his opponent's landings. In case you're looking for Classicpro in the Hidden Cup main event, and honestly, based on today's performance, there is a chance that you will have to be looking for Classicpro in the main event of Hidden Cup. One of the ways that you could actually find him out is that he seems like he's always playing with a lot of outposts. Many players do outposts, but it seems like Classicpro in every game he goes for some early outposts, and Zuppi is just going for a free TC boom here. That, once again, is somewhat questionable for me, because look at that stone counter for Classicpro. If you just give up on water like this, do you know what Classicpro is gonna do? He's gonna land you with a castle. That's exactly what's gonna happen. He's gonna land over here, drop a castle in your face, and GG. So, what is Zuppi up to? He's not making any fleet. He just made a dock so that he can drop off the fish, but it's 4 TC boom. So I guess the plan is that, considering that he's making 2 TCs on stone, is that he wants to drop a castle and redock after that. That's the plan for Zuppi. He knows that he lost water. He's not even bothering with this right now. So he wants to do a castle probably on the front, drop docks in front of it. Since the majority of Classicpro's fleet is fire galleys, a castle will be basically able to defend your docks from all those fire galleys or fire ships soon. And that means that theoretically Zuppi is going to have the chance to reboom, and behind this one he's trying to, or not reboom, but redock. And behind this one he wants to have a 4 TC boom, so he's going to be able to catch up in terms of production as well. So, yeah, exactly. Considering how bad Classicpro's map is, in theory, if Classicpro isn't playing aggressive enough, Zuppi is going to have a chance. Because what Zuppi is going to do, as I said, is 4 TC boom, castle, redock, and then turtle ships. That's the game plan for him overall. But the problem is that, as I said at the beginning of the series, Classicpro is one of the more aggressive players. So Classicpro already 4 villagers on stone. He's still far away from a castle, but now he's going to turn this into land aggression. And does Zuppi have anything to defend himself with? No, that's the answer. And we have seen that Classicpro was able to accomplish a lot with monks in the previous game. Also worth noting that even though Zuppi is going to be booming on 4 TCs, Classicpro is going to have 2, but Classicpro has fishing eco, and that compensates a tiny bit for the lower villager count, and Zuppi only has 6 villagers lead. Zuppi is going to be able to see the landing party over here, so D-Day 1942 colorized over here. So Zuppi actually having just 1 villager on stone, that's also weird. Honestly, you could even make a case for guard towers. That's the only positive I see for Zuppi right now. Against the monk and siege push, guard towers will work nicely. But Classic Pro just wants a castle. Classic Pro just wants a castle, and the thing is that if Zuppi isn't able to stop that, he's going to get destroyed, because that castle goes up here. You take away 2 TCs and like 80% of the farming eco. I feel like Zuppi has minutes remaining in this game. Zuppi could very well be out of the tournament in the next 5 minutes or so. So there's the siege workshop coming in here. And the transport already has the villagers inside. That's the castle. There's going to be a castle. However, Zuppi getting the guard tower up just in time. And honestly, Koreans will be a life-saving situation over here for you. With the guard towers of one villager is going to get converted over here. So that's a nice little added benefit. Another guard tower over here. So it seems like the tower defense may actually work out. That castle is just a little too late now and it's not going to go up. You could still attempt a castle elsewhere, somewhere around over here, for example. But in the meanwhile, I like that there is war galleys denying the back of the wood line. And the thing is that Zuppi is being pushed on his own island, that he's only having a 7-8 villagers lead. Let's see if this is going to be a doubt castle. I think this castle is going to go up because there is some war galleys over here that are slowing down the villagers. Doubt. This is a doubt castle. This isn't going up. This isn't going up, boys. And Classic Pro is going to end up having a doubt castle here. Maybe he can micro his villagers so that he's able to finish it, but it's going to be really tough. Especially against 2 guard towers, 80%. There is a monk over there that is also supposed to be healing. And yeah, you have to spam the right click over here on this one. Doubt. Smile upon us. 94, 96, 97, 98. It goes up. And all villagers died. So now, Zuppi has 11 villagers lead over here. But the castle is up and that matters a lot because now Zuppi has a castle on his island that he doesn't really have the chance to deal with at this very moment. So, also the villagers inside these towers may go down relatively easily. You shouldn't pop out the organ guns though, like, they will just be killed by the guard towers. And indeed, also worth noting that this stone mine is being pushed, even though the guard tower will be able to deny the war galleys over there. Other side, it looks like we're gonna have a ram push, but the thing is that 2 war galleys behind can actually take down the ram slowly, so I don't think that you can actually take this castle down with just a battering ram. And since the towers will eventually go down to the castle fire, the villagers could even pop out and kill that battering ram. In the meanwhile, we have this push stalling out here for now, and really the guard tower is helping immensely for... oh, Zuppi is repairing that ram. Zuppi is repairing that ram over here, wants to keep that castle alive. Organ guns should be focusing on the villagers at this point, and not the ram. But the castle is slowly going down. Now there is a second ram. I think there is villagers inside that ram as well. It's honestly very, very hard to shoot the villagers over here in this absolute mess. Both players trying to get into Imperial here. Only 1 guard tower remaining though for Zuppi. And that is also set on fire. One of the rams is actually very, very weak. And I think that Classic Pro may be able to hold this castle. So now there is only 1 ram. I think with the ram going down, this is going to be indeed a hold. Zuppi is going up to castle or Imperial, but it's going to be a slightly better imp time as well from Classic Pro. So even if Zuppi gets a castle up here for Trebs, Classic Pro is going to have his own castle. The only problem that Classic Pro is facing is that this castle is very, very weak, but this stone mine is being denied. And, you know, organ guns should start rolling in this direction and start killing stuff over here. Classic Pro needs to repair that castle though. That's something that, you know, you want to keep in mind. Anyways, fishing eco is still there for Classic Pro. He's got a 3 villagers lead, but the army numbers are what really is scary. 37 army against 1. Just 1, and that 1 is, I think, a monk over here. Organ guns, I don't think they can deny this castle, but they could get a couple of villager picks. Sure, why not? So 2 villagers go down, nice and easy over here. As I said, what Classic Pro could be having a trouble with here is that this castle is still lit on fire, and if this was 2 even HP castles, I would say that that is still possible for Classicpro to keep that castle alive, but if he doesn't repair that castle, he's just going to, you know, fall behind in terms of HP in castle, and it's gonna get trapped down. Now Zuppi is redocking, and let's see what he's up to. Karenin coming in here for Classicpro to strengthen his Galleon's Link. Classicpro knows that there is going to be a redocking happening at the back, and now he brought in a couple of villagers. He should start repairing that castle though, like ASAP, basically. Also worth noting that with the water control in the hands of Classicpro, he could yoink this relic. In fact, he could yoink this relic for himself, and that would also be something that is going to be extremely helpful in the long run. So being able to take away these relics is going to be immensely helpful, and now we are indeed going to see Galleons for Classicpro. And on the other side, War Galley, interestingly, for Zuppi. So he's not going for turtle ships. He doesn't believe in the power of the turtles. First trap is out a little faster for Classicpro, but this TC is on fire. Keeps will help quite a bit that, you know, keep the shoreline safe. And for now, that's also going to keep the organ guns rather safe over here. But Galleon is missing for Zuppi or Classicpro, interestingly. There is going to be War Galleys from Zuppi over here, and indeed, Zuppi is not out of stone. Zuppi is still able to mine some stone over here, he just doesn't have the villagers on it. Trap comes in here, trap being set up over here. This is an interesting spot because this could theoretically be exposed to a couple of Wargang guns. If the TC over here goes down and the tower here goes down and the tower is already dead. So that is something that is worth keeping in mind. So for now, the trap is taking down the market and stuff like that, whereas Zuppi is taking down the castle. I'm not a big fan of what Classicpro is doing over here right now. Like, he's taking down seemingly insignificant buildings, whereas he's losing his own castle over here. Now, he's Portuguese, so he could actually make a siege workshop and go bombard cannons. That could be something, but if the Koreans get their unique tech, their towers will be able to outrange bombard cannons. So I feel like Zuppi is holding this one. You are like 10 minutes behind. Is it on purpose? Nope, it is because I don't want to speed through a game where actually things are happening. That's basically the thing. We were always behind in this series because we started 20 minutes late. But hands up if anyone wants me to actually go triple 5 times speed at this very moment, where there's actually things happening. I did go through Dark Age as fast as possible, but I feel like there's absolutely no point at speeding through important parts of the game, right? That's what I believe. In fact, I'm not even a big fan of speeding through Dark Ages, but it was kind of necessary to keep the schedule, I would say. Alright, so Galleon's out for Classicpro coming in here. The thing is that Zuppi's woodlines are getting denied pretty hard over here, and even though Classicpro's castle went down, you still can't deny the fact that Classicpro's base is actually super safe, and look at this. This is majestic. Praetorias over here from Classicpro. He's 172 pop. It is debatable if the Praetorias are actually worth it here, and I would say no. Instead, what Classicpro should have done long time ago is get a castle up on these islands. Because on islands, whoever controls the neutral islands will pretty much win the game. And he had all the time in the world to take all this gold and stone. So this should be a castle here by now for Classicpro also. He should have yoinked this relic by now. I mean, he even had a monastery and had a transport, so he could have just taken that relic already. Now it is going to be Galleon v Galleon, but Karenin is missing right now for Zuppi, so he took a rather inefficient engagements. But soon, caravels will hit the field, and in the meanwhile, it seems like Zuppi is coming back on water. Now, that being said, as I said, if Classicpro just makes a castle on these islands, he's gonna have way more gold than Zuppi is gonna be able to access, and that is going to be something worth looking into. But Zuppi is now redocking on the front, trying to get a keep up, and I don't know what this transport is trying to do over here, but it's not going to happen. And in the meanwhile, you are going to deny that tower. That's actually pretty important because that prevents the redocking over here on the front. And if there is no redocking, then these islands are also a lot safer for Classicpro. But yeah, well, to be honest, Classicpro is now slowly letting things slip through his fingers. There is Karak coming in, which is going to give you 1 extra pierce armor for your ships. And now he's going for Caravel, but I feel like here just going for Galleons and securing the islands for yourself would be more than satisfactory, and you really have to ask the question if this is a good fight for you or not. With bombard cannons, the tower shooting at you, heated shot on the way, and the army numbers or navy numbers are actually getting evened out. It's 27 to 32. 27 to 32 is the fleet count right now, and Classicpro is throwing away army over here. As good as the start was for him, he's got a bunch of idle ships over here that isn't really doing anything, and more importantly, he never actually attempted to colonize these islands, and that's the main problem. On islands, these extra islands are so important for the extra gold and stone, and Classicpro is going to run out of the gold himself if he's not actually taking this gold and stone. And I feel like Zuppi, whenever he's gonna have the chance, he's going to get that gold and stone. Now it is going to be Elite Caravel, so he wants full Caravel play over here. Now, yeah, Feitoria Eco is endless gold, but Feitoria Eco is endless gold, but slow and very, very population costly. And you have to ask the question, which is better? To have a slow trickle of gold from Feitorias, or to send 20 of your Voyagers in here and take the gold? Obviously, if Zuppi runs out of all this gold and stone on this island, Feitorias will still be better than no resource income. However, at this very moment in the game, this island and this island is way more valuable than actually using Feitorias. It looks like Classicpro is going to take a fight over here. Remember, he's got +2 pierce armor on those ships, whereas his opponent only has +1. And it looks like we will see a bombard cannon push over here on the island, but once again, all he needs to do is just secure these islands, and his opponent is going to run out of gold. He's in a position to just win the game by taking it into a very, very late game scenario, and he's not doing that, and I don't like that, to be honest, over here. Now, I have no exact numbers, but someone remind me, is Galleon or Caravel more costly in terms of gold cost? Because that's also something that's worth considering at this point, because gold is going to start running scarce, and heavy demos against Galleons. Okay, man, sure. I don't understand what Classicpro was planning the whole game. He'd never actually attempted to take these. He had all the water control, and when he saw Zuppi redocking, he should have just dropped the castle here and here. And then he has extra gold and stone over Zuppi, and all he needs to do is just match the galleon numbers of his opponent, because he's always going to have more gold. He even has Feitorias. He could have grabbed that relic. He could have grabbed this relic even, that now is in the hands of Zuppi. So he should have been able to just simply outlast his opponent by, you know, taking these neutral islands. Yeah, Caravel is 43 gold, Galleon is 30. But is that Galleon for Portuguese or it's Galleon for Koreans? So the real question is Caravel for Portuguese cheaper in terms of gold cost than Galleons for the other civ? Because that's the real question. Okay, so in this case, unless the Caravels can take better engagements than the Galleons, then the Galleon play is actually better for Zuppi. Cannon Galleon on the way, over here. So yeah, this is still not over, and it appears that the heavy demos will have their effect, because fast fires were in for Zuppi. But fast fires here are just simply serving the role of tanking up the arrow fire from the Caravels, and you see that Caravels aren't doing well against fast fires, to be honest. Zuppi does not have the unique tech for the tower range, and now Zuppi is making a transport. Zuppi wants to go out here, and it seems like, as I said, Classicpro is the more aggressive, more fast-paced, faster player overall. However, Zuppi is the wise and experienced player out here, and what we are seeing here is indeed experience showing for Zuppi. The fact that he's going to realize the importance of these islands, and he's just playing it as he's supposed to. Kind of kamikaze Voyagers coming in here, and that is going to be quite a lot of Voyagers dead. Fast Fires, however, are going to be excellent at tanking up the arrow fire, and that is Dry Dock coming in. For Classicpro, heavy demos are on the way, and this is the castle that should have happened a long time ago. By that I mean 20 minutes ago. And also, with that tower going up, I'm tempted to say that we might see another Doubt Castle over here from Classicpro. If he loses this game, he lost it because he made bad decisions. Oh, man. Classic Pro was actually very, very close to winning this game, but he cannot throw it away. And also, indeed, Dry Dock being this late is also something that hurts really badly. And the thing is that Classic Pro never actually went out for this island until his opponent started moving out. And that is just a massive misplay. And now, Zuppi is going to say, hey, hello there. I'm gonna have a very nice position here with my Korean heated shot keeps, thank you. I could get the unique tech as well. I could transfer my traps on this island and start trapping down your docks. And I could potentially start mining gold when Classic Pro is about to run out of gold. This was a massive misplay here by Classic Pro, underestimating the importance of those neutral islands. The thing is that overall, the most important part of this map on islands is the neutral islands. Whoever controls them usually wins the game, like 90% of the time. And it looks like Zuppi isn't going to get free zeroed. And I don't like calling games throws, but this was sort of a throw from Classic Pro, because at some point he had ultimate water control, he had a landing on the opponent's base, he was actually pushing his opponent, and all he needed to do is just drop a castle here and prevent Zuppi from actually accessing that and outlast him in the game. What does the unique tech do for the Koreans? Depends which unique tech. The new unique tech is, I think Upsong is what it's called, and it's the Castle Age unique tech replacing Panoxeon. And back in the days, it used to be that the Koreans' towers get +1 range per age. That was removed because it was too OP. So now you get +2 range on your towers with Upsong. And the other unique tech is called Shinkichon, which is giving you 1 range to your onagers, which is also very, very valuable upgrade, especially on, for example, Black Forest, or overall when you need to use Korean onagers. But we have seen how those are 10 range onagers for Koreans, because they also have siege engineers available. Now it's 49 ships to 34, and now Zuppi is the one that can just say, okay, whatever, I'm going to just delay this game as much as possible, because I know that you will be running out of gold. And he's right. Classic Pro is running out of gold, and this is why you colonize those islands as soon as possible, basically. Because if you start losing those islands, by the time you have a chance to reclaim them, your opponent is going to get them, start mining gold, he's gonna have extra gold, and that means that he's always going to be able to field more army than you do. You will have a little chance of regaining it as you are running out of gold in your base. And yes, there is free Phaetorias for Classic Pro. Does that matter? Absolutely not. Because now he's slowly running out of ships over here. And even though Zuppi is getting trapped down over here, if you take a look at these fleet numbers, it's getting scarier and scarier right now for Classic Pro. So the towers, Zuppi is now having the unique tech on them, so they do have 13 range. They outrange standard cannon galleons as well. They do have heated shot, full upgrades on them. They are just absolutely slaying ships, and I think that this is a game here. This is a game here for Zuppi. He's going to win on his own home map. That being said, we can't deny the fact that for the majority of this series, Classic Pro has been outplaying Zuppi, so this is a small win for Zuppi, a foundation to build upon. But he's far from turning this one around, because, in fact, for the majority of this game he was behind. It was more of an awful decision-making from Classic Pro that allowed Zuppi to come back into this one. Obviously, he did what he had to, but Classic Pro's misplay also contributed to the fact that Zuppi was able to come back. It's a combination of Zuppi playing the right thing and his opponent playing the wrong thing that happened over here. So now, as you see, Classic Pro is out of gold, and from this point on, all Zuppi needs to do is just camp these islands and wait until his opponent runs out of gold. Obviously, Classic Pro is never going to run out of gold, so what you want to do is still take engagements, force fights, because what you want to do is make this game as short as possible and capitalize on your gold, because obviously in an extremely long game scenario, I mean, let's say 2 hours plus, it is very possible that when you run out of all the gold here, the Phaetorias will start to have its effect. And also worth noting that there is still this unclaimed relic over here in the middle, which, by the way, could also be in the hands of Classic Pro if he actually made an effort to grab them. And the truth being told, Zuppi is unable to access this gold still. And in the meanwhile, it's 51 ships against 39. Nice defense over here from Classicpro, by the way. Looking at the wood count, Classicpro seems to have less wood, though. This is only one patch of trees that is comparable to this one, but there is also 2 more patches over here for Zuppi, and more importantly, Zuppi has the extra gold in the middle. As I said, when all the resources run out of this map, Fetorias will suddenly become extremely important, but currently they are not as strong right now. It's a nice and steady, slow resource income for you. However, right now it is better for Zuppi that he's actually able to mine gold over here with villagers, as compared to having a slow trickle of gold coming in here for him, because the slow trickle of gold is good in the long run when your opponent doesn't have any gold, but currently, in terms of gold income, there's probably a better gold income for Zuppi, especially if he's able to mine gold. But is he actually able to mine gold? That's a question that I have to start asking, because this is everything but efficient, and the Fetorias are actually trickling in a decent amount of gold over here, plus Classicpro is also able to sell a lot of food that he's getting from the Fetorias. And the thing is that Zuppi is supposed to be winning this one if he was able to access these gold mines. But he's not able to access these gold mines. Zuppi has 7 on gold, and honestly, 7 on gold, especially with this big travel distance, is actually probably comparable to the Feitoria gold income that Classicpro is having right now. And another Feitoria comes in here for him. The problem that Classicpro will soon be facing is that his population spots aren't really allowing him to have a lot of ships on the field. But as I said, as long as Zuppi isn't able to access the gold here, the Feitorias will actually be better. And as I said, if Zuppi was able to access this gold, he would be having the upper hand over Feitorias. But is Zuppi able to access that gold? And the answer is no. That's not a wonder, that's a Feitoria. The Feitorias have the same foundation as wonders, in case you're wondering. Get it? In case you are wondering. And in the meanwhile, Zuppi getting another bunch of towers up. It is also worth noting that towers will be military here as well. So the thing is that when resources start running scarce, you are gonna have to take down towers, and that's gonna be pretty costly. So super duper late game island games usually have towers with an increased value, because what players are trying to do is just snipe down cannon galleons. Anyways, now Zuppi is able to access gold mines, and that's the problem that Classicpro is facing. He's unable to field enough ships, and if Zuppi is able to get a consistent gold income over here, he's going to destroy this fleet and finish the game. So that's a nice move over there from Classicpro. Zuppi is at 140 population, Classicpro is 170, however that mostly comes from Feitorias. And now Classicpro is dropping in ship count. I think that's the end of the story for him. Zuppi also needs to pick that relic up over there. And it's worth noting that Classicpro has not picked up any of his relics. So yeah, Feitorias this, Feitorias that, but gold income from the middle and relics combined could actually be pretty nice for Zuppi. That's a nice counterattack from Classicpro, but as I said, towers are actually going to be pretty devastating against those ships currently. And it's only 21 military against 51, 42 galleons against 22. And Classicpro is running out of all wood on this island. Oh my. Trying to redock on the north over here as he's losing his docks. Soon the wood is going to start rising in price as well. And Zuppi indeed is floating a lot of wood as well, which is a massive advantage. Obviously, as I said, Feitorias will give you a lot of wood in the long run. So when Zuppi runs out of his own choppable wood, that's gonna be a good situation for Classicpro. The problem is that Zuppi is not running out of his choppable wood anytime soon. This is at least 3,000-ish wood for him, whereas Classicpro is chopping down the final trees left on his island. There's a little bit of wood over here, about 1,500. But at this point, Zuppi is able to access gold mines and stone mines over here. He's sitting on 2 relics that I think he also have garrisoned, right? Yeah, he also has 2 relics, which is, at the end of the game, you're going to see a nice little extra income and scale barding, which means that now we are going to get to the part where if there is nothing else that you can do with these villagers, you will do 2 things. Take shorefish, because that's some sort of resource income. Number 2, you will kamikaze land and just go light cav. Especially because one thing that we have to consider is that the Feitorias give an awful lot of food for Classicpro, so he could definitely try affording a landing, but still the ship numbers are much better, and as I said, all Zuppi needs to do is just trade evenly against these ships and use the fact that he has a lot of extra gold and stone in the middle, whereas his opponent is pretty much out of resources. And unless Classicpro can drag this game out into a 2-hour long game, where the Faitorias will start mattering. Like, basically the win condition, the only win condition I see for Classic Pro now, is if he's able to stall this game out long enough for Zuppi to run out of this wood, run out of this gold and stone in the middle, and start to have the Faitorias contributing. But Zuppi's ships are now looking pretty decent over here, and it is 50 army against 10, and the only reason why Classic Pro is at 150 population is because he's having Faitorias. In here, idle TC time, of course, and idle Voyager time is going to skyrocket. Speaking of idle Voyager time, Zuppi has 8 hours of idle Voyager time, which is ridiculous. So, dogs are slowly going down, and dogs being killed here in late game is actually a thing, because they're actually pretty expensive on the wood costs once you start running out of wood on the entire island. And that's beautiful from Zuppi as well. He will get quite a lot of Voyager kills. The good news is that Faitorias cannot be raided, but still, slow and steady, Zuppi is getting in there. But remember, keep in mind that if Zuppi runs out of these resources, Classic Pro will still have the Faitorias. So, Zuppi cleaning up the galleys over here, and that means that Classic Pro doesn't really have anywhere to go. He's got 38 Voyagers right now, and I feel like it's a matter of time only. But yeah, one thing that Zuppi should start doing is getting a couple cannon galleons out, because he needs to start taking down actual buildings. For example, taking down the market would be great. Like, in such a late game scenario, killing the market and killing the monastery is huge, because the market allows Classic Pro to balance his eco. The monastery would be allowing him to grab relics, which is not really the case over here, but under normal circumstances it would be. Speaking of that, Classic Pro still hasn't picked up his relics, which is now starting to hurt pretty badly over here. And lastly, you could also make a case for cannon galleons trying to take down the Faitorias. Trebs taking down the castle over here, potentially setting up for a landing from Zuppi. Classic Pro did tech him to forging and skateboarding, but he just doesn't have the landing potential right now. He's still trying to hold on to this one, but as I said, Zuppi still has a lot of wood to work with. Like an awful lot of wood. I don't know why he's getting another market up here. There is no one to trade with. And you see that Zuppi, I think he's intentionally not reseeding his farms now. I think this is completely intentional. Because at this point, the farms are starting to be useless, and you need every bit of wood that you can save up for fleet. Now, Classic Pro is not giving up on this one easily, but as I said, if he didn't have the Faitorias, he would be at 80 population right now. And the thing is that you need numbers here with the galleys, and you see that the resources are slowly trickling in, but it's not as good as the resource income from Zuppi, who is now taking the relic, I think. So, Zuppi will be on free relics now, which also obviously gives you a nice little trickle of gold. And really, like, Classic Pro is hoping that he can stall out the game long enough for his opponent to run out of resources completely, but what he doesn't know is that his opponent still has a lot of wood, and there is also a lot of wood in the bank. If Classic Pro wins this, this is gonna be a crazy comeback, but it seems somewhat unlikely because now we see a landing over here. So Zuppi coming in here with towers, and towers here are actually going to be crazy as well, because you're gonna start killing villagers. And the thing is that at some point Classic Pro is gonna run out of villagers, and when you have 0 villagers, you will have 0 chance of, you know, landing on your opponent's side, for example. Surprising that we're not seeing cannon galleons from Zuppi. Correct me if I'm wrong, but after Koreans missing demo, I wouldn't be surprised, but Koreans should have at least standard cannon galleon, right? Yes, Classic Pro's island is much worse. That is completely correct. I totally agree with that. However, we also have to add that in the previous games, he also had very good maps. So, unfortunately, it is still impossible to get perfectly balanced map generations. But yes, I said at the beginning of this game that Classic Pro's island is way worse. And that is why, for example, he should have moved out to these middle islands when he had the chance. And at some point, Classic Pro was dominating the water, and he never went to these islands. He had 40 ships against 1. If he just drops a castle here and here, Zuppi is never able to redock here, and he would have had a lot more extra gold. The central islands are extremely important on islands here, because that is what decides who has more resources in this game, pretty much. If there wasn't Faitorias for Classic Pro, he would be long dead by now. He's floating a lot of food over here. Still, selling this one for gold, but as I said, wood price will start increasing now, just getting guilds to make trades a little bit more efficient. And at this point, really, what Classicpro is hoping in is that Zuppi runs out of resources. That being said, the Galleon numbers are getting closer, and as I said, Zuppi is getting stables, which is nice, but Classicpro has no villagers. At this point, we're getting to a position where it's gonna be 4 Faitorias, and I'm going to scream if Zuppi loses this, because he's not supposed to be losing this, but the longer the game goes, the better it is for the Portuguese player. And in terms of ship numbers, we talk about 35 ships against 60. That's not as bad as it used to be. Yeah, I think all that Zuppi needs to do is just set up the traps and take down the Faitorias. If he takes down the Faitorias, this is absolutely GG. And that's exactly what he's trying to do now. Ignore the castles, just go for the Faitorias. Because without Faitorias, there is no resource income for Classicpro. He's going for the castle, but I'm not even understanding why. Should just take down the Faitoria. Iron casting on the way as well for Zuppi, so he's actually willing to go for raids, but Classicpro has 13 villagers right now. He has 13 villagers, but this is huge as well. The Galleons being able to take down the traps. Castle still standing over here as Zuppi sets up his traps. And it is still 60 Galleons against 37 though. But Zuppi is out of wood. Zuppi is out of wood. And theoretically, if Zuppi isn't able to take down the Faitorias over here, soon the Faitorias will actually be a better resource income than what Zuppi can actually have. Oh boy. Oh boy, like Cap sniping on the trap, it's actually very, very valuable over here. Classicpro indeed sort of has an unraidable eco. This is why I feel like Zuppi should just focus down the Faitorias as fast as possible, because he also knows that the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking, and if Zuppi loses these traps, suddenly things are going to get really rough. Luckily for him, those traps are still alive, but unless he starts killing those Faitorias, it's gonna be rougher and rougher. Gets a nice run with the fast fire ships over here. That's the entire fleet that Classicpro has though, and it's 32 galleons against 60 still. I think that Zuppi will have just enough to win, but once again, he should have won this a lot more convincingly, let's say. This was his own home map, in a map where he had all the gold and stone in the middle. Question: do Koreans have redemption? Do Koreans have redemption? Because if they do, the other that's it. That's what I was thinking about. You could actually, if you have redemption, you can try converting the Faitorias. If not, then you will just go and pick up the relics. You cannot convert Faitorias? Okay. I think that was the other thing I wasn't sure in. That I think you can. I think no one actually attempted converting Faitorias, but why wouldn't you be able to? And the thing is that there's absolutely no land army for Classicpro. There's nothing on land. So it actually makes sense to try and convert the Faitorias if you have redemption. Okay, Koreans don't have redemption. That actually is a very, very sad scenario. In that case, you just make the traps and take these down, exactly. And replacing them is going to be very expensive for Classicpro. Oh no, Zuppi though. Zuppi is actually going to lose the traps over here, and that would be a disaster. If he loses the traps, that delays this push so much. It is unacceptable to lose those traps. You can see that Classicpro is committing everything he has to take down the traps. And that trap survives. Oh boy. Oh boy. Like really, if that trap survives, it's a completely different scenario than when it goes down. Because if it goes down, look at this, Zuppi made a mill on the farming eco of Classicpro. The resources are so low now on the map that you actually make a mill to steal the opponent's farms so that you actually have some sort of resource income. Because we are really at the domain of having no resource income versus having actually something as a resource income. Anything. But at this point still Zuppi has a massive fleet, so this game has to be at least 2 hours long for Classicpro to be able to do anything here. And that's the main problem that he's facing. That this is so big of a difference in ship count, and imagine if Classicpro picked that relic up in the middle. Really, Classicpro shouldn't really be winning this one unless this is a very long game, and all Zuppi needs to do indeed is just make sure that that trap doesn't die. Also worth noting indeed that at this point you can actually start thinking about adding some fishing ships, although the wood is actually pretty expensive, but you can actually try adding some fishing ships so that you can actually have some sort of food income, and then you sell the food and buy wood with it. That's the plan. Classicpro obviously has more pop because he has Faetorias. He's not giving up on this, now sending the villagers to repair, but that is extremely costly. He got a trap out himself, but oh, Classicpro, he may actually lose that trap over here. Dispatches the villagers to repair, Organ Guns defending, and Zuppi, the villagers are now completely useless because there is no resources to gather on this map. Which means that you will actually start sending in villagers as military. You will just start running down buildings with villagers. That's the thing. And the tower goes down over here. Honestly, the problem here that Classicpro is facing is that his bombard cannons would be able to take down the traps very easily, but the opponent's towers will just kill the bombard cannons, and indeed, that's exactly what Zuppi is doing. He's like, okay, whatever, I don't need my villagers anymore. You actually don't need the villagers. Another Factoria is going to bite the dust. It's still 60 ships against 21. Light Cav's now diving in to snipe the trap over here. Trap is going to survive. Oh my goodness. This is a thriller, really. Because the thing is that if Zuppi isn't able to take down the Faetorias, and there is a trap to counter-trap that one, then eventually the resource income is going to be better for Classicpro. As crazy as it sounds like, but moment by moment, he's going to slowly start crawling forward. And the thing is that if this is actually going into game number 4, we will be in a tricky situation, because I was like, when I saw Classicpro dominating this game, I was like, what happens if Classicpro wins 3-0 and we'll have 30 minutes downtime before the Lily vs. Cupwash series? But it seems like, oh yeah, that's exactly what Zuppi is gonna do. He's gonna pull all the boys to try and take down that trap. And that actually makes sense over here because Zuppi needs to keep that trap alive, but if the tower goes down, the Organ Guns can dive in and snipe that trebuchet over there. I have a feeling that Classicpro might actually be able to stall this out. He saves the trap. He saves the trap. He saves the trap, boys. No, nothing is left on this map anymore. Like, nothing is actually left. So villagers are completely useless from this point. And, like, really, oh, the market. The market is actually a very nice idea for Zuppi here. Because you use the market to balance at your eco. It seems like Zuppi wants to get another stable out here, but you could really make a case for trying to take down the market. The thing is that Zuppi is still floating a lot of food, which is something that's worth keeping an eye on, so he could still try getting Light Cav in and try to snipe that trebuchet over there. Zuppi still has 3 gold wheels in the middle. Oh yeah, indeed he does, and that's still 200 gold, and 200 gold in a game like this is an awful lot. But it is 30 ships against 64 still. Soon, however, oh, this is also smart from Zuppi. He's destroying houses. And the houses cost a lot of wood, and you see 100 wood being bought for 121 gold. So yeah, if you actually kill the market, if you kill the houses, you cause considerable damage to Classicpro because he's gonna get housed and he's gonna be unable to trade his resources off. However, as I said, soon there is going to be absolutely zero resource income for Zuppi, and from that point on, Classicpro, all he needs to do is just, you know, wait this one out. And, this is gonna be one of the craziest wins. There was a game, I think it was on the Bonjour Invitational, right? 2020 April-ish. Bonjour Invitational, I think Viper versus Hera. That was a melee. There was a game where Viper was melee, and he was able to win the game because he had infinite fish traps at the back of his base. Was that Fairsif's Cup? Okay, it was Fairsif's Cup then. But yeah, you get what I mean. There was a game with that, and the market is still standing. Ship count right now is 35 to 61, and as I said, Zuppi's resource income is about to die out completely. He's still got 20 villagers on food. So he's gonna be able to sell food for some time. However, now, the Faetorias... It wasn't an AC, it definitely was an AC. That's for sure. Because I casted that game and NAC is something I can't cast. So, the thing is that now we are in a domain where it's actually going to be better to have these galleons. By the way, these galleons still have 10 pierce armor compared to only 9. so by quality, these Galleons are a little bit better. Still, there is like a combined HP of 8,000 versus only 5,000. This is not even that bad for Classic Pro. 5,000 HP against 8,000, and the Voyagers of Zuppi getting killed over here. This is a good fight for Classic Pro, believe it or not, because his Galleons, all of them are almost full HP, whereas Zuppi has a lot of weak Galleons. Look at the combined HP, 5.5k versus 5,000. Zuppi is losing his entire fleet. Zuppi is going to be out of Hidden Cup with an absolute thriller. This is crazy. And the extra Pierce Armor, the extra HP as well. Look at this. The extra HP for the Korean guys, a trade cog even, and the trade cog actually makes some sense if there is a random dock you can trade with. Holy smokes, the extra HP and extra Pierce Armor for Koreans winning the game here. It's Zuppi is out of ships, out of resources, and who would have thought that Classic Pro is gonna make the biggest turtling game here? He literally lived long enough to see his opponent run out of resources. Oh my goodness. I have to say that this is so far the best game in tournament, because there was so many swings in this one. It seemed like Classic Pro is winning this, and then yes, Zuppi can sell food, but the food price is at the bottom, whereas his opponent is getting gold and stone directly. That's the thing, that Zuppi is gonna get 14 gold for 100 food here. You can actually do the math how much gold this is. This is about 500 gold, and every wood, it's about wood now, it's not about gold, because Zuppi has 5 relics actually. Zuppi actually stole all the relics from Classic Pro's islands, but the problem is that 5 relics versus the Phaetorias that also give you wood, and the wood price is what is up in the skies now. The market went down, however, as I said, it's Phaetorias. And the Phaetorias will allow you to get wood directly, and that's a massive difference between the two players. That one player has a consistent gold and food income, whereas the other one is gonna have direct income of wood, and here wood is extremely expensive. You can see the price rising. So with that, Classic Pro, all he needs to do now is just wait. That's basically all he has to do, because from this point on, his opponent is gonna be always having less resources. You see that Zuppi now he's taking shorefish because there is nothing else left on this map. There's absolutely nothing left on this map, and we're talking about 7 galleons and no, 5 galleons and 7 fire ships against 24 galleons, a fight that Classic Pro should be able to convincingly take, and he's gonna get a siege workshop in here. He could actually try landing with a ram, although landing over here is a little bit tricky, so this kind of has to be a trap, or a trap. Zuppi once again landing with 2 more traps with, I think this is the final desperate effort from Zuppi. He was saving up for 2 traps. The problem is that there is spearmen and there is villagers here. And the thing is that no longer is Zuppi able to protect those traps. When he had the superior fleet, he could just set the traps up in a position where he can protect it with the fleet he has, but he no longer has the army to protect the traps with, so even if he lands, he is going to exit the game with top score, 5 relics after an enormous comeback, and I don't think that a lot of people believe that Classic Pro is going to win this game after that counter landing. Oh, and remember the time when Zuppi was trapping down the castle here? I told you that maybe it would have been better to take down the Phaetorias, because that's exactly what cost Zuppi the game here. And Phaetorias, you see, I'm going to tell you a story soon about this one, but sometimes Phaetorias can win you games, and this is why Portuguese is still one of the best civilizations to play with on islands. And also, we have to give credit to the war bonus of Portuguese. More HP on the ships, more pierce armor. And that is something that really contributed to the fact that even though it was still something like 60 versus 45 ships, but the quality of Classic Pro's ships were way better. Holy smokes, this is definitely the game of the tournament so far. Classic Pro edging out a victory over here, and he 3-0 Zuppi. I predicted 3-1 for Zuppi at the beginning of this series, and I'm absolutely shocked. The first 2 games were pretty much stomps by Classic Pro, and it seemed like this is gonna be a stomp, but then it looked like Zuppi is gonna make a comeback, and then at the end of the day, this was a long enough game where Zuppi ran out of resources. And the thing is that, as I said, Classic Pro is Like, Classicpro even had the chance to grab Mortalic, so this could have been even cleaner for him, but he 3-0'd Zuppi, and in the next round, ladies and gentlemen, the next Finnish player, Viles, is waiting Classicpro now. So, in case you're watching on YouTube, hopefully you enjoyed, because you have witnessed one of the best games of this tournament so far.